Hello everyone, welcome back to IT Master. In today's tutorial, we're going to explore a complete 3D interactive product website built with HTML, CSS, Three.js, and GSAP. The important thing is that the code is already written. So in this tutorial, we're not going to type the project from scratch. Instead, we'll go through the existing code, understand the important sections, and see how each part contributes to the final result. Let's start by looking at the finished project in the browser. We have a dark, premium interface with a glowing 3D object in the center. The object rotates continuously, floats gently, reacts to the mouse, and has two glowing rings around it. We also have a particle field in the background, animated lighting, a navigation bar, feature cards, and an about section. Now let's open the project in our code editor. We have three main files: index.html, style.css, and app.js. The HTML controls the page CSS controls the visual design, and JavaScript creates and controls the 3D experience. Let's begin with the HTML file. At the top, we have the normal HTML document structure. We also have the viewport meta tag, which makes the layout responsive on mobile devices. The title defines the browser tab title. Next, we connect our style.css file. We also load the GSAP library before our own JavaScript file. This is important because our JavaScript will use GSAP for the entrance animations and button interaction. Now let's move to the body. The first important element is the canvas container. This empty div gives JavaScript a place where the Three.js renderer will insert the 3D canvas. Next, we have the navigation bar. Inside the navbar, we have the IT master logo, three navigation links, and the explore button. Then comes the hero section. This is the main content users see when the page loads. We have a small eyebrow label, the main experience, heading, a short description, and two action buttons. We also have a small product information block on the right side. After the hero, we have the feature section. It contains three cards. The first card explains real-time 3D. The second focuses on smooth motion. And the third explains interactive design. Finally, we have the about section, which explains the purpose of the experience. So that's the complete HTML structure. Now let's move to style.css. We already have all the CSS, so let's understand the important sections. First is the reset. The universal selector removes the browser's default margin and padding. We also use box sizing border box. This makes width and height calculations much easier because padding and borders are included inside the element size. Next, we style the body. The background is a very dark color, which gives our blue 3D object a strong contrast. The text color is white, and the font stack uses Sego UI, and system fonts. We also hide horizontal unwanted scrolling doesn't appear. Now let's look at the Three.js canvas container. It uses position fixed and inset 0, so it covers the entire screen. The height is set to the full viewport height. The z-index places the canvas behind the website content. And pointer events are disabled because the JavaScript listens for pointer movement on the window instead. Next is the navbar. The navbar is fixed at the top, so it stays visible while scrolling. We give it a height of 90 pixels and horizontal padding using viewport units. The display is flex. The display is lets us place the logo, lets us place navigation the logo, links, navigation links, neatly in one row. Neatly in one row. The background uses transparency. While backdrop filter blur creates the frosted glass effect. The border at the bottom adds a subtle separation from the page. Now let's look at the logo. The logo uses a larger font size, heavier font weight, heavier tight letter spacing. The span inside the logo has reduced opacity, creating a softer secondary appearance. Next are the navigation links. They use flexbox with a gap between each link. The links start with reduced opacity, and on hover they become fully white. We also have a small underline effect. The underline starts with zero width and expands to the full link width when the user hovers. Now let's look at the navigation button. It uses rounded corners, transparent white background, a subtle border, and backdrop blur. On hover, the button moves slightly upward and becomes brighter. Now we move to the hero section. The hero fills at least the full viewport height. Flexbox vertically centers the content. The padding creates enough space around the content, especially because the navigation bar is fixed. The hero content has a maximum width, so the text doesn't become too wide. The eyebrow text is small, and uses letter spacing to create that modern technical style. Its small line on the left is created with the before pseudo element. Now look at the main heading. The font size uses clamp. This is important because the heading automatically scales between different screen sizes. The 3D text gets a linear gradient. We then clip that gradient to the text and make the actual text color transparent. That's what creates the blue gradient effect. The paragraph underneath has a maximum width, readable font size, and increased line height. Now let's look at the two hero buttons. Both buttons share padding, rounded corners, and transition effects. The primary button uses a blue gradient and a soft blue shadow. The secondary button uses a transparent background and a subtle border. Both buttons move upward slightly when hovered. Next is the product information block. It's positioned absolutely near the bottom right of the hero. The text is aligned to the right and uses small letter spacing for a technical interface look. Now let's move to the features section. This section uses a dark background gradient that gradually becomes more visible as we scroll down. The heading uses another responsive value, so it scales with the viewport. The feature grid uses CSS grid with three columns on larger screens. Each feature card has a minimum height, rounded corners, transparent background, and backdrop blur. When we hover over a card, it moves upward slightly and becomes brighter. Finally, we have the About section. It uses a dark background and large responsive typography. The paragraph is limited in width and uses a comfortable line height for readability. Now we have the responsive CSS. At screens below 900 pixels, the navigation links are hidden and the feature cards change from 3 columns to 1 column. At screens below 600 pixels, the nav bar becomes shorter, the hero spacing is reduced, the heading becomes smaller, and the buttons are stacked vertically. The product information is also hidden on mobile to keep the layout clean. So that's the main CSS structure behind the interface. Now let's move to the most important file, app.js. First, we import Three.js from the CDN. This gives us access to the Three.js classes and objects needed to create the 3D scene. Now look at the basic setup section. We select the canvas container from the HTML. Then we create a new Three.js scene. Think of the scene as our 3D world. Everything we create for the 3D experience will eventually be added to this scene. We also add exponential fog. The first value controls the fog color, and the second value controls how quickly the fog becomes stronger with this distance. This helps create depth in the background. Next is the camera. We use a perspective camera. The first value is the field of view. The second value is the aspect ratio, calculated from the browser width and height. The next two values define the near and far clipping distances. Then we move the camera back to the Z position of 7. This gives the camera enough distance to see our product. Now let's create the renderer. We use WebGL renderer because Three.js uses WebGL to render the 3D scene. Anti-aliasing gives us smoother edges. Alpha allows transparency. The high-performance power preference asks the browser for a performance-oriented graphics context. We then set the render size to match the browser window. The pixel ratio is limited to 2, which helps keep high-resolution displays sharp without unnecessarily increasing rendering cost. We also use the sRGB color space and ACES filmic tone mapping for a more polished visual result. Now let's add lighting. First, we have an ambient light. This provides general illumination so our objects don't become completely black. Next is the directional light. It has a soft blue color and comes from the upper right side. Then we add a strong blue point light. This light creates a glowing blue highlight around the product. On the opposite side, we add a purple point light. Together, these lights create the blue and purple premium lighting effect. Now let's build the product. First, we create a Three.js group. This group will contain the main product, the inner object, and the rings. The main geometry is an icosahedron geometry with a relatively high subdivision level. This gives us a detailed geometric surface. Next, we create a mesh physical material. This is one of the important parts of the visual style. The color gives the object its blue appearance. Metalness controls how metallic the surface behaves. Roughness controls how sharp or soft the reflections appear. Transmission gives the material a partially transparent glass-like quality. Thickness adds depth to the transmitted light. Clear coat adds an additional glossy surface layer. And the clear coat roughness controls how smooth that glossy layer appears. The IOR value controls the index of refraction used by the physical material. Together, these properties create the combination of glass, metal, and glossy material that we see in the browser. Now we create the actual mesh by combining the geometry and material. Then we add it to our product group. Next is the inner object. We create another icosahedron geometry, but this one is smaller. Its material is darker, more metallic, and slightly rough. This becomes the glowing core inside the main object. Now let's create the first ring. We use torus geometry to create a thin circular ring. The ring material is a basic material with transparency and reduced opacity. We rotate the ring so it appears tilted around the product. Then we clone the ring. The second ring is scaled up slightly and rotated differently. Later, these two rings will rotate in opposite directions. Now let's add the particles. We create 900 particles. For each particle, we generate a random radius and angle. The cosine and sine values convert the angle into x and z positions around the product. The y position is also randomized, which spreads the particles vertically. The result is a large circular particle field around the object. We then create a buffer geometry and attach the generated positions to it. The points material gives the particles their small blue glowing appearance. Now let's look at mouse tracking. We create an object containing the current mouse position and target mouse position. When the pointer moves, we convert the mouse coordinates into normalized values. Subtracting 0.5 moves the center of the screen to approximately 0. That gives us a convenient range for controlling the rotation. We don't immediately apply the mouse value to the product. Instead, the animation loop gradually moves the current mouse value toward the target. This creates smooth movement rather than sudden movement. Now let's look at the GSAP intro animation. At the beginning, the entire product is scaled down to 20%. We also rotated away from its final position. GSAP then animates the scale back to 1. The elastic easing creates a small bounce as the object reaches its final size. At the same time, another GSAP animation brings the rotation back to 0. This creates the cinematic entrance animation. Next, GSAP animates the hero content. The eyebrow, heading, paragraph, and buttons start slightly lower and transparent. They then move upward and fade into view one after another. This gives the page a smooth entrance instead of displaying everything instantly. Now let's look at the button interaction. When the user moves over the primary button, GSAP slightly increases the scale of the product group. When the pointer leaves the button, the product returns to its normal scale with a small elastic effect. It's a simple interaction, but it connects the interface controls with the 3D object. Now we reach the animation loop. This function runs continuously using request animation frame. First, we update the current mouse position smoothly toward the target position. Then we rotate the main product slowly. The inner product rotates in the opposite direction. The two rings also rotate, but in opposite directions and at different speeds. Next, the entire product group responds to the mouse position. The X rotation is controlled by the mouse's vertical position. The Y rotation is controlled by the mouse's horizontal position. Because we use a small interpolation factor, the movement remains smooth. We also add floating motion. The sine function creates a continuous up and down movement, making the product appear to hover in space, making the product appear to hover in space. Then we animate the particles. The particle system slowly rotates. The particle system changes slightly over time. While its X rotation changes slightly over time. We animate the lights. Finally, we animate the light moves around the product using sine and cosine. The purple light also changes position. The purple light also changes the lights position. The highlights on the physical material change. The highlights on the physical material change. This is a major part of what makes the product feel alive. At the end of every frame, we call renderer. At the end of every frame, we call this takes our scene and camera and draws the current frame onto the screen. Now let's handle browser resizing. Whenever the window size changes, we update the camera's aspect ratio. We update the camera's aspect ratio. Then we call update projection matrix so the camera uses the new dimension matrix. We also resize the renderer and update the pixel ratio. This keeps the 3D scene responsive across desktop, tablet, and mobile screens. Tablet. Now let's return to the browser. We can see the complete result. We can see the product enters with a smooth GSAP animation. The object rotates continuously. The inner core moves in the opposite direction. The inner core moves in the opposite direction. Rotate around the product. The two rings rotate around the product. Depth in the background. The particles create lights continuously change the highlights. The lights continuously change the highlights. The product smoothly follows the mouse. If we hover over the Explore Product button, if we hover over the slightly and then returns to its normal size, grows slightly and then returns. We can also scroll down to see the feature cards. And if we resize the browser, the layout, and if we resize the browser, automatically the layout and 3D scene. So let's quickly recap. We started with a structured HTML page. We created the visual interface with responsive CSS. Then we built a complete Three.js scene. Then we built a complete Three.js physical materials, a 3D product, physical materials, and particles. A 3D product. We added smooth mouse interaction. We used GSAP and a continuous animation loop to bring the entire experience to life. The result is a modern 3D product website that feels much more interactive than a traditional flat interface. And that's it for today's tutorial. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like the video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like the video. Subscribe to web development and creative coding turn on notifications for more web development and creative coding tutorials. See you in the next tutorial. Thanks for watching. See you in the next tutorial.